SkillUp English Podcast. To speak with confidence.
Lead with excellence.
Hey, English listeners. Welcome to the SkillUp English Podcast. Today, we are exploring one of the most powerful ideas ever put into words, the empty cup. Why your ego might be the biggest barrier between you and your next great lesson. Stay with us. This one will change the way you see learning forever.
Remy, I want to start with something personal. When I was learning Spanish, I thought, okay, I already speak English, I understand grammar. How hard can this be?
Oh, the classic trap. And let me guess, it didn't go quite as smoothly as you planned.
I kept trying to force Spanish sentences into English grammar patterns. My brain was full. There was no room for a new system because I refused to let go of the old one.
That is exactly the problem the teacup story is talking about. If the cup is already full, you cannot pour anything new into it, no matter how valuable the new knowledge is.
Let's unpack that story properly. It comes from Zen Buddhism around the early 20th century, though the wisdom behind it is far older.
A famous Zen master named Nan-in received a university professor, a very educated man who came to inquire about Zen, which means he came to ask and learn.
But from the very beginning of the conversation, the professor kept showing off. He quoted philosophers, he debated every point, he barely let the master speak.
So the tea master silently began pouring tea into the professor's cup. He filled it to the brim and then kept pouring.
Tea spilled all over the table. The professor jumped up and said, "It's full. No more will go in."
And the master calmly said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?"
That is the whole lesson in one moment. Beautiful and brutal at the same time.
Now, Ryan, when we say ego, some people think we mean arrogance or being a show-off.
But it's actually much more subtle than that. Exactly. The ego in this context is that inner voice that says, "I already know," or "My way is the right way," or even "I don't need to listen to this."
It's not always loud. Sometimes the ego whispers. It whispers when you skip the basics because you think they're beneath you.
It whispers when you half listen to advice because you've already formed your conclusion.
It whispers when you read a book and say, "I know this already," and close it after 2 pages without giving it a real chance.
That whisper is comfortable, but that comfort is a cage.
Let me give you a shocking historical example. In the early 1840s, a doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis noticed something terrifying.
In Vienna hospitals, women were dying of a fever after childbirth in enormous numbers. Semmelweis figured out that doctors were going straight from performing autopsies to delivering babies without washing their hands.
He introduced hand washing. The death rates plummeted, dropped dramatically. The evidence was right there.
And yet, the medical establishment refused to accept it. Senior doctors were offended. Their ego said, "Are you suggesting that we, educated physicians, are causing these deaths?"
They could not empty their cups, and because of that pride, thousands of women died unnecessarily over the next 2 decades.
Semmelweis himself died in a mental asylum, heartbroken. The world only accepted germ theory after Louis Pasteur confirmed it years later.
A full cup, a cup full of ego and pride, cost lives. That is how serious this lesson can be.
In Zen Buddhism, there's a beautiful concept called Shoshin, which means beginner's mind.
The idea is that an expert approaches a subject with very few possibilities in mind, but a beginner, a true beginner, sees endless possibilities.
The legendary Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few."
Imagine you've been cooking for 20 years. Someone shows you a new technique. If you say, "I've been cooking longer than you. I don't need this," you have closed the door.
But if you say, "Oh, interesting, tell me more," suddenly 20 years of experience plus a fresh idea makes you even more extraordinary.
The beginner's mind doesn't mean being ignorant, it means being open. It means holding your knowledge lightly, not clinging to it like a life raft.
Here's a beautiful real-life story. When Steve Jobs dropped out of Reed College, he started auditing classes, sitting in classes without being officially enrolled.
And one of the classes he chose was calligraphy. Beautiful handwriting. Absolutely no practical value, or so it seemed.
He walked into that class with an empty cup. No agenda, no immediate goal, just curiosity and openness.
10 years later, when he was building the very first Macintosh computer, he remembered everything from that calligraphy class. That became the foundation of beautiful typography in Apple computers.
And that changed the entire design of how computers look forever.
If Steve Jobs had said, "I'm studying technology, what do I need calligraphy for?" the world would look very different today.
An empty cup caught a lesson that changed history.
Now, let's bring this very close to home, to English learning, because this is the SkillUp English Podcast after all.
Yes, and trust me, ego is everywhere in language learning. I see it constantly.
One of the most common forms is pronunciation ego. A learner thinks their accent is fine, they resist correction, they feel embarrassed to repeat simple sounds.
Or grammar ego. Someone who has studied grammar rules for years but refuses to believe they make mistakes. They get defensive when corrected.
Or even vocabulary ego. A learner who thinks they already know enough words. They stop expanding, and their English stops growing too.
The students who grow fastest, and I have seen this time and time again, are the ones who are willing to sound silly, who repeat a word 10 times, who say, "Wait, can you explain that again?"
They embrace being a beginner, even when they are intermediate or advanced. That is the empty cup in action.
There's a deeply important moral and ethical point here, Rimi. In many cultures, admitting you don't know something is seen as weakness.
But the greatest thinkers in history, Socrates, Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, they were obsessed with how much they didn't know.
Socrates famously said, "I know that I know nothing." And that was his superpower. That emptiness kept him searching, questioning, growing.
Einstein kept a beginner's notebook until the very end of his life. He would write down observations like a curious child, not like a celebrated genius.
Humility is not small. Humility is the container in which greatness grows.
And ego, unchecked ego, is the lid that seals the container shut. Nothing gets in, nothing grows.
All right, let's get practical, because knowing this is one thing, doing it is another.
Step 1. Pause before you respond. When someone teaches you something, before you say, "I know," take one breath. Ask yourself, do I really know this fully, or am I just familiar with it?
Step 2. Seek out people who challenge you. If everyone around you agrees with everything you say, that's a problem. Find the person who thinks differently. Listen to them genuinely.
Step 3. Go back to basics. Even experts revisit fundamentals. A concert pianist still practices scales. A chess grandmaster studies opening moves. The foundation never gets old.
Step 4. Embrace the discomfort of not knowing. When you feel confused, don't run from it. Sit with it. That confusion is the feeling of your cup emptying, making room.
And step 5. Replace "I know" with "tell me more." Those 3 words, "tell me more," are the most powerful words a learner can say.
Here's an incredible civilization example. In 1868, Japan went through what's called the Meiji Restoration. For centuries, Japan had been isolated, completely cut off from the outside world.
When the new leaders took power, they did something remarkable. Instead of defending their old ways and saying our traditions are superior, they sent thousands of young Japanese people around the world to learn.
To Germany to learn engineering, to France to learn art and law, to the United States to learn industry. They emptied the national cup completely, deliberately.
And within one generation, one single generation, Japan transformed from a feudal society into one of the most industrially advanced nations on earth. I was in awe. That is the power of a nation choosing to empty its cup. Imagine what it means for an individual.
A country bowed its head to learn and rose as a giant. That is not weakness, that is breathtaking wisdom.
I want to say something important though, Ryan. Emptying your cup does not mean throwing away who you are.
Yes, this is so important. An empty cup doesn't mean a broken cup. It means a clean cup, ready to receive something new without contamination.
Your experiences, your culture, your identity, these are the craftsmanship of the cup itself. They give the cup its shape, its beauty, its character.
What we empty is not our worth. We empty our assumptions, our prejudices, our certainty that we have nothing left to learn.
Softly, the cup you are is extraordinary. It just needs to be emptied so it can be filled with something even more magnificent.
That gave me chills, honestly.
So, English listeners, let me ask you something personal. What is your cup full of right now?
Is it full of the fear of making mistakes? Pour that out. Is it full of the belief that your level is fixed? Pour that out too.
Is it full of comparison, always measuring yourself against others instead of your own yesterday? Empty it.
Because every single day, life offers you something new to learn. A new word, a new perspective, a new story, a new skill.
But you can only receive those gifts if your cup is ready.
The tea master wasn't punishing the professor. He was inviting him into a bigger, freer, more beautiful way of being in the world.
That invitation is open to all of us. Every morning, we get to choose to carry yesterday's fullness or to begin again with an open, empty, magnificent cup.
All right, my amazing listeners, it's time for our favorite part of the episode. I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful words, idioms, and phrases from today's episode. Ryan will react, and together we'll make sure these stick in your mind like glue. Let's go. 1. Inquire. Verb, meaning to ask about something formally or with curiosity, to seek information. The student decided to inquire about the scholarship before the deadline.
Oh, that's so much more elegant than just saying ask, isn't it?
Exactly. It sounds thoughtful, curious, intentional. 2. Plummeted. Verb, meaning to drop or fall very quickly and sharply. After the team started practicing daily, their error rate plummeted within just 2 weeks.
I love how dramatic that word feels, plummeted, like something falling off a cliff.
Yes, it really paints a picture, doesn't it? 3. Subtle. Adjective, meaning not obvious, so delicate or precise that it's easy to miss. The teacher's correction was so subtle that the student didn't even realize she had been corrected.
Subtle is such an English speaker word. It's everywhere once you start noticing it.
4. Speculations. Noun, meaning ideas or opinions formed without firm evidence, guesses or theories. His explanation was full of speculations. None of it was backed by actual research.
And the tea master used this word beautifully. You are full of your own opinions and speculations.
It implies a kind of busy, overcrowded mind, very visual. 5. Typography. Noun, the art and technique of arranging written text to make it visually appealing and readable. Good typography can make even a simple message feel powerful and professional.
Most people don't know this word, but once you know it, you see it everywhere in design, apps, books.
6. Feudal. Adjective, relating to feudalism, a very old social and political system where land was owned by lords and worked by peasants, old-fashioned and rigid. The company still had a feudal hierarchy. Nobody could speak to the director without going through 3 layers of management.
Ooh, you can use that in modern life too. Very sharp word.
Chuckles. Very. And now you know where Japan was before the Meiji era. 7. To audit a class. Idiom or phrase, meaning to sit in on a course without officially enrolling or receiving credit, just to learn. She decided to audit the advanced writing class just to improve her skills, even though she wasn't required to.
This is something Steve Jobs did, and look where it took him. So auditing is for curious people.
Exactly. No pressure, just pure learning. Beautiful concept. 8. Hold something lightly. Idiom, meaning to have an opinion or belief without clinging to it too tightly, being open to changing it. A good leader holds their ideas lightly, confident enough to share them, humble enough to change them.
This is my favorite one today. It's so wise. You can be knowledgeable and still be open. The two aren't enemies.
That's beautifully said, Ryan. 9. Contamination. Noun, the process of making something impure by introducing harmful or foreign elements. The new team was free from old habits, no contamination from previous bad practices.
And we used it in a really interesting way today. An empty cup has no contamination from yesterday's assumptions.
That's the metaphor working on a deeper level. I love it. 10. Plummet versus soar. Contrast phrase, meaning two powerful opposite verbs. Plummet means to fall sharply. Soar means to rise sharply. Use them as a pair for dramatic contrast. When she stopped overthinking and trusted the process, her anxiety plummeted and her confidence began to soar.
Ooh, that's powerful and so useful for writing or speaking with impact.
Listeners, practice these words this week. Write them down. Use them in sentences. And remember, your vocabulary cup should always have room for more.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the SkillUp English Podcast.
If this episode touched your heart and opened your mind even a little, please share it, subscribe, and help our community grow. Every share you make is a cup of tea you're offering to someone who needs it. We pour our hearts into this, and your support is what keeps us going. See you next time, beautiful listeners. Keep learning, keep growing, keep emptying that cup.